everybody. Welcome to another episode of Allure of the Poor, sponsored by Dracaena Wines. I am your host, Lori, a WSET Level 2 graduate, UC Davis winemaking program graduate, champagne specialist, and something else SOM service certified. I always forget one of the three or four. Anyway, today I am so excited because I am getting to share more of Paso Robles with all of you listening or viewing today. And today I have Josh Harp of Jada Vineyards. And I'm going to tell you, these wines rock. I mean, they are incredible. So welcome, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. First of all, my first question to everybody is always the origin story. So, how did you get into wine? When was that moment where you're like, wine? Yeah, I want to do that.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's funny. I've heard a lot of other winemaker origin stories, and we all start off with, well, I have a weird origin story. And as you know, that is so not everyone's got the strangest origin stories. I think that's just the winemaking, thing. But I think I started earlier than a lot of people, and maybe in a stranger way. So I actually, when I was in high school, I grew up in the Cottonwood Redding area. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that area. It's in Tehama County, about 2 hours north of Sacramento.
Oh, okay.
Not an area that a lot of people are familiar with as being a wine growing region. But there's actually quite a few wineries up there, figuring it out and doing quite a good job. And so I was lucky enough to grow up down the road from a small winery, about 10 acres, and was doing odd jobs here and there, mowing the lawn and doing a little bit of pruning and just kind of like a little bit of everything. And I didn't realize it, but I didn't realize what I was working next to. I wasn't working, I was in the middle of an orchard is what I thought I was at the time. That was what I was familiar with and it wasn't until the day that I walked into the barrel room and they had just ordered a bunch of new oak. And I was like, what is this? This is amazing. You get, and I think a lot of it was American oak too. So it was just this intense vanilla and toasted wood. And I said, okay, I want to do whatever.
I want to crawl in there and stay in there.
Exactly. Anyone not familiar with the smell of recently or new oak, it's something else. It's otherworldly. But so that happened during, I think, my sophomore year of high school. Actually, I fell in love with winemaking, and from there they let me do all the fun cellar worker stuff, the cleaning tanks and helping out, harvest and during the crush. And I was doing that whenever I could on the weekends while still going to school. And from there on, I realized that was my passion. I ended up going to junior college up there at Shasta College. And my goal was to apply to one of the winemaking universities. I ended up moving down here to Paso Robles, or actually San Luis Obispo, just south, and ended up finding a job in a tasting room at it was called Sextant Wines.
Oh, okay.
And that was my first job working in the wine industry. And they knew that my passion was working in the cellar and getting down and dirty with the grapes. So I only worked in the tasting room for about 2 weeks, and they said, hey, we need some help for harvest. And I never looked back. I basically was really lucky working under some of the best winemakers in the area from there on. And so just started my career. Basically, that was in 2010.
It's interesting because I always ask, there's book knowledge. Like I did UC Davis, right? But that only goes so far, in my opinion. It's a phenomenal program, and I highly recommend the program. But you know what? They can't say, it's going to rain, the day before you want to harvest. What do you got?
Right.
That it's the experience. It's being in the vineyard on a daily basis and vintage after vintage after vintage of just stacking that all in your brain of learning. Well, this occurred and now this occurred. So now I've got to do this. So I think it's the experience that really, nails it for becoming a great winemaker.
Absolutely. I always say to a lot of the young, future winemakers that I meet, I wouldn't ask anyone to do it my way. That's for sure. I would say definitely start with one of the programs. That's the smart way. If anything, you learn how to learn. And I think that's a very important skill that you can learn at the university level. But that being said, the wine industry is one of those few industries that you can learn hands-on from highly skilled, very smart people. And if you're willing to learn and you're willing to work hard, you can be very successful.
So you had mentioned Sextant, which is, for people who don't know, it's another Paso winery. And it is, it's another one of our favorites. There's not too many that's not our favorites in Paso. I mean, what are we at? Like 300 now? Over 300.
That's only if you count the wineries with a foundation. I mean, there's so many other labels out there too.
Right. But it's just so much quality there. But your job title after your 2-week stint as a tasting room was a cellar master. So it's funny. People think winemaking is this big romantic thing. And it's, oh, this is so great. You get to drink wine all the time and do all this. Can you kind of explain to my listeners what some of your jobs entailed being a cellar master?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, Sextant was one of the best learning experiences I think I could have asked for. So cellar master especially is like one of the coolest names in the industry, but it's not necessarily, like winemaker's great, but cellar master sounds way cooler. My friends always said, like, you should be wearing a cape, shouldn't you? But no, it's cellar master is true to its name. Your job is to make sure that you know everything that's happening and everything that's gonna and plan for everything that can happen in the cellar. So usually the day-to-day job is writing work orders and creating a plan for different transfers and racking from barrel to barrel or barrel to tank, putting together the blends, basically following the orders of the winemaker, then actually figuring out how to logistically, make that happen, which doesn't always work out so smoothly. But another big role is also sanitation. I mean, that's a huge or an important, task in winemaking. And if you let your guard down, that's where things can start to go wrong. So yeah. So really logistics and again, sanitation. And then also just because of the nature of Paso Robles, we're a little bit smaller and we tend to wear a lot of hats here. So I really was tasting through a lot of the final barrels for our blends. So if we needed, 5 of this one lot, I would make sure that all those barrels were up to the standards that we were, planning for. So there was a lot of hands-on learning there as well. And a lot of the job is also supervision as well. So just making sure people are doing everything safely and efficiently. And so again, one of the most important things I learned there was how to multitask and do all of those things, but not only in one winery, but we actually had a couple of different facilities and actually 2 places where we were making wine. So we had to track all of that work across the different areas. So that was pretty exciting. And then when I moved over to Jada, and that was in 2015, I was promoted to assistant winemaker. And really, again, it was a little bit more smaller setup here, but a lot of the work was the same, but a little bit more hands-on and a little bit more intensive as far as working in the vineyard and also tasting and helping or assisting and putting together blends.
You forgot one major quality of a cellar master, and that's like being a monkey, right? You got to climb, you got to learn how to climb barrels, and it's not like climbing a tree.
No, and that's why I say, yeah, OSHA, we never do that, but
right, never.
no, we never do that. No, it's actually, I feel bad saying this, but that is like that's the most fun part of working in the cellar is climbing barrels and pulling samples and actually putting together the blends that the winemaker was asking to put together. So yeah, no, that's and not only barrels, sometimes case goods, stacks of
right.
trying to get to the back, so you're like 20 30 feet up. Sometimes it's a little scary and not for everybody. And I should say the goal is always to strive for safety. So that is not if you can do it another way, we start there. So
absolutely.
I should say that while we're
there's always that ladder. There's always that, and everybody's always wearing the safety belts. Always, right? Yeah. But I agree. It's kind of one of the more fun things.
And we still, well, here at Jada, we only stack barrels about 3 high or 3 stacks high.
Oh, okay.
So at most you're only 10, 12 feet high.
Yeah.
So it's pretty reasonable, but you still get a little bit of an adrenaline rush, walking through barrels.
Yeah. It's for anybody who doesn't know, it's kind of like if you watch American Ninja, where they have to, put their arm or parkour, where they put their arms and feet against everything, and you're completely pushing against it to get yourself up.
Yeah. It's complete. Yeah, that's absolutely true. In fact, the other day I was pulling a sample from one barrel. In our walls, we had the corrugated metal walls, so they had the little ridges.
Right.
And I went, I think if I can wedge my back up against one of those ridges, I can have a free arm to put the wine thief into the barrel. You have to sort of plan, how you're going to actually do this, because where we are, we can't put any mobile ladders or anything down the aisles.
Right. So also a contortionist. You also need to be a contortionist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got to stretch in the morning if you're going to work at a winery. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So you had mentioned that you moved over to Jada in 2015, and relatively quickly you were promoted to assistant winemaker. And then some wineries, the assistant winemaker really is responsible for either like the white wines or the red wines, or maybe they have their own, you're responsible for the Chardonnay, or you're responsible for a Merlot or whatever. How did your assistant winemaking program work at Jada?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're pretty small, so we average about 3,000 cases. I would say probably about 2,800 to 3,000 cases at the most. And so, again, like I said before, everyone wears the same hat. So really, in this scenario, and I was working under the former winemaker David Gazzagnato, and so he would put together the general winemaking plan. He had the overall general plan of what we were going to do. But then a lot of the labor would get divided, among us, because we were all doing the work. So a lot of the blending, a lot of the techniques for blending, and then just improving my palate as far as what to look for when putting together the blends and also producing high quality wines. Was a big part of my job, just to listen, learn, and then help as my palate improved during those years. Because as we know, you can never stop learning when it comes to wine. So so a lot of the we did the work, the same work, but again, as far as a general plan that was set by the winemaker. And then also in the slow times or when necessary, we would also go out in the vineyard, which is something that isn't always as accessible to winemakers or even assistant winemakers at larger facilities, because either the vineyard is a little bit further away from the winery, or it's just not possible as far as the time and and then logistics of that. So I was very lucky to also do that here, starting at Jada, is to spend a lot more time in the vineyard and understand what we should be looking for, and then seeing that produce into wine, and be able to make that connection, which I think is very important.
And so in 2017, you started working with consultant Tony Biaggi, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I saw this when I started. I always say I like have to creep through and find all this information about whoever I'm interviewing, but like your group, and then I couldn't find it again. But winemaker of the year, right? Did Jada just get named?
Not myself, no. So yeah, I'll start from the beginning, so it makes it a little bit more
Okay.
clear. So in 2017, before 2017 harvest, David, the former winemaker, moved back up to another winery up in Napa, and the idea was basically to see if we can transition myself to the winemaking role. And to prove that, we brought in some consulting winemakers, including Eric Jensen of Booker and Tony Biaggi of Patria and Hourglass. And so they aided myself and my assistant winemaker now, Nate, during the 2017 harvest in both the vineyard farming as well as the winery winemaking side. And thankfully, we didn't mess anything up during the harvest, and it ended up being an amazing vintage that we're very proud of, and we'll be trying today, I believe. And so I was promoted just after the harvest. But I did all the blending and all the day-to-day work along with my assistant winemaker for the 2017 vintage. And then just this year, Tony Biaggi was announced winemaker of the year. Was that by Venice? I should know this, but
I saw it once, and then I like, okay, I'll continue this later, and then I couldn't find it again. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, it was Tony Biaggi, and so he was announced winemaker of the year. He still consults for us. We bring him in to again, you never stop learning. So he assists us with blending and kind of any decisions or any questions that arise that are a little bit more advanced. But we were very excited that was very well deserved of him. He's a wonderful winemaker and a very good teacher. For sure.
But it's also kudos to you also, because you were in there doing all that. So it's really, I think anytime a winemaker gets credit for whatever, I think it's really the whole team. Like even like you said, the cellar master covering all that, because the winemaker is saying things, but everybody has to make sure that they're doing their job correctly. So it's a team win, in my opinion.
Oh, it really is though, and I don't think there's ever more true words than that. Despite what I don't want to say, despite it's kind of a harsh word, but a lot of people think that the winemaking job is kind of a high tier thing, or the end role that does everything, and unfortunately this is not true. It really is a group effort. In fact, I lean very heavily on our assistant winemaker here to when putting together blends, and really any important question that comes up, we talk it over. So it's very important to have a reliable team and a lot of fresh ideas, because we always want to grow and develop something that's even better every year.
And now with that and like that teamwork thing, that brings me back to just Paso as a place. And we fell in love with it, and we think it's such a special place. And I don't think there's really any other place on earth, wine region, that really believes that this winery, my winery, does better if your winery does better. Right. Oh. And, and I think that's Paso in a nutshell, is that everybody wants everybody else to succeed. Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. It's a very communicative community, and everyone is always say, hey, I saw that you tried this. Can you give me some tips on that? Or give me a contact for maybe a different barrel supplier or something like that. So there's a lot of flow of information here. And also everyone's just very nice to each other. And it's very refreshing for sure. And then also I think everyone realizes that, the same thing, you're not going to learn if you keep doing the same thing every year. And you stay in your own little dark cellar, right. And never look outside and see what everyone else is doing. I think that's really, really important. And especially with, we know things are changing. People's palates are changing, the climate's changing. We're also learning a lot about what does grow really well here in Paso Robles. And so we're really young as far as a wine growing region, as you know. So there's so much more to learn. But yeah, I've been excited from the very beginning since I started my career in the wine industry to see that kind of community existed here.
Absolutely. All right. So back to Jada. Where does that name come from? How did we get to Jada?
It's a very good question, and it's a long route to get to that answer, but not really. So I'll shorten it down. The Messina family who owns Jada, they're the fathers, the grandfather, I should say. So the father, our owner, his father immigrated from Sicily over to the East Coast. So you'll see, for those who aren't or are familiar with some of our wines, we have a lot of names that are kind of homage to the origins and the family, so because that's very important to them. And so Jada is the name of was originally the name of what they thought as the ship that the father came over from. Now, unfortunately, it ended up being that was not the case. But
too late. We already named the winery.
So, and then later they ended up seeing another boat that had that word on it, and they said, "Okay, no, this has to be something that's true." So that's kind of the story. It's really funny how it ended up working out, but we still love it. So.
All right. So with the East Coast, so I'm a Jersey girl. And
perfect. Okay.
I know. And in all honesty, we all go find wines. However, some of us find, some people find wines for points, which is, we'll get into that with you guys. But when the first time we visited Jada, it was all about Jersey girl. It was like, it just was like, all right, they got a Jersey girl wine. We're going. And then we're like, oh, wait. This is great. Oh my God, they've got a Hell's Kitchen. They got they're all of these East Coast things. And the person behind the counter gave us a little background that they were from the East Coast and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. So Jack Messina's wife is a Jersey girl as well, and so this is her wine basically. It's really funny because people react very differently, as you can imagine, to that name. A lot of people just don't know what it means.
Yeah.
But when we get someone from Jersey that comes, it's very exciting. But it's also really, I guess, emboldened us to make that wine something very special. I mean, I think all of our wines are very special, but I always think that the wine should sort of fit the name. As fanciful as it is, there's some element that should make sense. And so I really think that the wine that we make works for what a Jersey girl should be.
I have to ask you, so what do you envision as a Jersey girl? How are you translating that?
So in the wine, because I should be careful describing the person, should I? But
I've heard it all. So.
Right. So the goal is it's a Côte Rôtie style wine. So we do co-ferment Syrah with Viognier, and then usually we blend in a little bit of Graciano and some other clones of Syrah. And so my goal is to make something that's very bold, but still rich and very sexy. I mean, that's the goal is just no hard edges, with an aromatic profile that's intriguing and pretty, and also very lasting with a very long finish. So there's a lot of strength there, but there's also a side that's delicate, without, and they kind of meet perfectly in the middle to make something that works.
You did great. You did great. Yeah. I say it all the time, in the blog, and even even thing is like, oh, I'm getting Jersey on them, like there's just situations that you've got to go Jersey, and
yeah, absolutely.
And there's other times that, now living in California and with Paso, our first contract was a handshake, and that blew me out of the water.
Right.
I was like, no handshake. No.
I have my pen ready to go.
Yeah. And we literally, my husband and I went back home, and we were like, all right, maybe we're being too Jersey. Like, we're going to let this go. We're going to let this go.
Right.
And we are still in a contract, our green contract with our grower. We absolutely adore him, and we've expanded and all that, all off of a handshake. So sometimes you got to back off the Jersey, but yeah.
And let the paso in. Yeah.
Let the paso in. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you did a good job. I mean, I think Jersey girls we're known to be bold. We don't keep our mouths shut, even sometimes when we're supposed to be. It might be better if we do. But I think once you get to know a Jersey girl, that's where the little bit of warm and fuzzy we can be is in there. But you've got to, we've got to welcome you into that warm and fuzzy.
Exactly. And that's how I approach the wine is the longer you sit with it, the more you discover, and that's really important to me with that, especially on the aromatics. And often with a lot of wines, they'll have these amazing aromatics, but they don't necessarily follow through. They don't have the strength that you're looking for. And so we make sure that we have a good mouthfeel to support that, a good backbone, if you will.
That's awesome. So let's get back to the property itself. You said that you were able to walk the property, which is always, the best, if you can see what's going on in the vineyard, to translate it into the bottle. It's 90 acres around, right?
So it's a 92 acre property. We are planted to only 45. So we have about 15 acres though that we can plant. We're just making sure we're planting the right things at the right time. So I, since I started, I was able to I was really introduced to the higher level of farming that we're used to now. And, but in 17, during the transition, I was really helping supervise a lot of the management. And then in 18 and 19, I actually ended up doing, along with some consultants, managing a lot of the vineyard as well. So that was a really quick learning curve that I had to go through, and learning that side of things. But it also really, I think, improved our winemaking as well, just being a little bit more engaged. But yeah, so for those, as you know, our tasting room and winery are almost right in the middle of our vineyard. It couldn't be a better setup, honestly, because we're right up on this hill. And then no matter which way you walk, you go down into a vineyard, into one of our blocks. Okay. So especially during those years, 17 through 19, and then and we just converted to a management company that we trust to do the same quality. But during those years, and even now, all I have to do is just walk out one of the doors, and I'll be into one of our blocks, and I can check on how they're progressing or how a crew is doing. And just make sure that the quality is what we expect. So yeah, no, it's an amazing setup here, and I want to say it's a rare opportunity, but it's not something that every winemaker gets to enjoy. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And so what are your main varieties that are planted there?
Syrah and Cabernet are our two main varieties. We have very interesting soil profiles and elevations. We're actually between the lowest and highest part of the property. It's about a 200-foot, almost 250-foot elevation difference. So it's rolling hills with, I'm just going to describe it for anyone who hasn't been here. Rolling hills. It's surrounded by oaks around the perimeter of the property, and that gives us the ability to grow a pretty diverse selection of varieties. Whereas in some places around the world, you're only going to be growing Bordeaux varieties, in some places only Rhone varieties. But we found that at certain soil profiles on our property, we work better for Rhone varieties, and usually in the lower, higher clay, a little bit moister soil, we're planting some of the Bordeaux varieties. But we also have Petit Verdot, Merlot, and Grenache. And then kind of the more strange ones, the Graciano, which I think you're aware, got planted back in the day under the.
I was going to ask. That was actually my very next question. I was like, so is Graciano, or is it part of the Graciano goof?
It's part of the Graciano goof. Exactly. The best goof that could have ever happened to anybody. We love it. I think it's actually, it's one of our favorite grapes on the property. It has to be, and I'll explain that more later, but we found that it's very, it can be difficult in different ways and in ways that we would not have expected, but if done right, it's one of our favorites for sure. We also have Tanat, which I think, we had talked about.
Yeah.
We have Tanat on the property, which is, again, another one of our surprise favorites. It does amazingly well here. Inky dark, huge structure, but not overly tannic if we're doing the right winemaking techniques with it. And what else we have? And then we only have one white right now. We have Viognier, but we're hoping to plant some different varieties in the future.
Okay. And then do you do, other than the Tanat, do you do any single varieties? Is the Viognier a single also, or is it all for blending?
Some years it is. So we do the co-fermentation with the same Viognier, but we do, last 2 years, we've done 100% Viognier.
Okay.
And then we do a lot of blends. We love our blends here for sure. But yeah, the Tanat is one of our regular single varietal blends or single varietals. And then every so often we'll do a single varietal Syrah or a single varietal Cabernet where it's truly 100%. So not 90 or 95, it's 100% Cabernet or 100% Syrah or something like that. So, and then we also do a Grenache that's sometimes it's around 90% or so. But it really depends on the vintage. And that's where working with the Messina family has been so amazing is they have that flexibility to let us make the best of something, whether it's 50 cases or 200 cases every year, and or try something funky, right. It just really depends. So I get to play around a lot.
That's for sure. That's awesome. So let's talk about this first one. Now I didn't open this one because I can't drink everything, but this is the Jack of Hearts. So right off the bat, I wanted to do this one first because you said that, you got some funky grapes out, it's Petit Verdot, which I absolutely adore. And I'm not gonna lie, the reason why I didn't open this one was because my husband also loves Petit Verdot and he's on a business, he's traveling. So he would be very upset. He was very excited when this got delivered. He's like, yes, so if I opened it, he's not coming back till Saturday. It would be empty by then.
Right.
So I didn't.
No, that's a great excuse. I love that. That's there's no better excuse than that. So yeah. So our Jack of Hearts. So again, we have names that have a little bit deeper meaning than when most people think originally, and also just a really fun label, I think.
Yeah. So if you can explain the label and the story.
Yeah, so it's just, really, it's just Well, first of all, obviously Jada starts with a J, but Jack Messina is the owner, so he's also the important J in the Jada family. He's now a finally, because he just recently retired, a cardiovascular and thoracic surgeon. So so he's the Jack of hearts. He was a heart surgeon. So we wanted to kind of put that on a label, but in a fun way. And this was kind of the artwork that ended up coming out of that process. So yeah.
Cool. And it's it is 47% Petit Verdot, 37% Cabernet Sauvignon, 10% Merlot, and 6% Malbec. So this is always a blend? Is it always a Petit Verdot dominant?
Yes. So with a lot of our blends, despite not being varietal specific, or I should say, varietal wines, we do tend to feature a specific variety. So in this case, it's Petit Verdot. And so every year, the only rule for this wine is to make sure that people can still taste the Petit Verdot and understand what we're trying to do with that variety. And then the other grapes are usually supporting that in some way. And so we are very lucky to have insanely dark, structured Petit Verdot on this property that is really not, it's not a savory style Petit Verdot. It's actually very delicate and floral with a lot of, that typical violets and dark fruit characteristics. And so we tend to blend in a little bit of Cabernet and Merlot to add a little bit more rich and different fruits to add some complexity to that. But again, the idea is when you're tasting this wine, it's Petit Verdot right away. Awesome. But so yeah, usually it'll range between 35 to 45%. In this case, 47% Petit Verdot. Sometimes we'll go way up to 50 if we can. And there's only so much to be had on the property. I think we have about 1.9 acres of it.
Oh, okay.
And so it's not a lot, but but it goes a long ways. And the idea with this wine is to again have that rich, balanced structure. And our techniques in the winery or in the cellar ensure that we don't end up with a wine that's too tannic. So sometimes even though we could go really crazy and go all the way to the end of the fermentation and do tons of skin contact, we'd have a really dark but overly dry or overly tannic wine. And we don't want that for this wine. So we'll pull back a little bit, maybe press a little bit early, if maybe at one or two bricks, and we're left with something that's extremely dark, and again has wonderful mid palate density and a long rich finish. And then we'll usually do about 70% new oak on this as well, with specific cooperages to achieve the characteristics we're looking for.
And then what I did open is Hell's Kitchen.
Yes.
So
yes.
This one
is a little more obvious.
What?
I was a little more obvious on the naming.
Yes.
On that one.
Yes.
Not everyone knows or familiar with that area of
you know what? And a lot of people probably think it's the chef, the show is Hell's Kitchen, but I mean, that's kind of where it came from, where his show came, right? I think. Right. I assumed. Right. I've always assumed. But I have to say Hell's Kitchen is like one of my favorite areas in New York. So it just makes me happy to see it. But this is 60% Syrah, 20% Grenache, 16% of that lovely Graciano, and then 3% Viognier and 1% Tanat. So you want to tell us about this? Well, I finally get to enjoy it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So a true Hell's Kitchen, right? I mean, so this was Hell's Kitchen was actually the place where Jack Messina's parents met after he immigrated. The father immigrated over from Sicily, and his parents met in the Hell's Kitchen area of New York. And as you're familiar, that place is historically known for different cultures and different groups of people. And now it's known for, for different foods and culinary, types. And so that really goes with the name, because as you saw, there's like six or 20 different varieties in this. And it's not by accident necessarily, actually. So we do a lot of co-fermentation in the winery. Okay. We're basically planning for the bottle out in the vineyard as we're farming it. So if we know something will come in about the same time, we'll put it in the tank. And a lot of what you'll see is either Syrah and Grenache co-fermentations or Syrah and Graciano co-fermentations. And then you can see a little bit of the Jersey Girl, part of the component, the Jersey Girl slipped into here with that Viognier and some of the Tanat. So, and believe it or not, on this one, it's my goal is actually for this to focus more on the Grenache than anything. I don't know if that'll necessarily make sense, but I really love the beautiful candied fruit the floral characteristics of the Grenache offers in this wine. And then the Syrah is adding complexity and dark fruit and some structure. But I always do about 20%, maybe 25% Grenache in the Hell's Kitchen blend, if I can do it. And then the Graciano tends to add a lot of really nice earthy, almost savory soy sauce kind of characteristics on the back end too.
Yeah, that definitely comes through. There's a meatiness to it, which that's Syrah. And then it's got a beautiful bouquet aroma that is delicate, that's probably can't describe things like this anymore, but feminine,
right,
to it. But what's the oak in here?
It's I think it's usually around 20 to 30% at most is our goal. And on top, and often larger format neutral barrels.
You froze for a second. I heard 20% and then I didn't hear what happened after 20%.
Gotcha. So 20 to 30% new oak. Okay. But usually larger format new oak barrels, as well as larger format neutral barrels. And sometimes we mix in a little bit of concrete as well. And so we really want integration. We're going for integration in here, not over the top toastiness, a lot, just more complexity and mid palate weight, and that we're just supporting that fruit.
Right. That's what I was going to say. You get a little bit of that vanilla in the center, in the mid palate of it. And it, there's some big boy grapes in here. So, but I think that pulls them together, as opposed to them wanting to battle to see who is the winner, Yeah,
I agree. No, that's a great way to put it, because if I think sometimes it's hard for a lot of people to understand the role that oak, and especially new oak, can play in making a wine better. It's not necessarily about aromatics, or even flavor. Often you have these two grapes that want to be their own wine,
right?
And you can taste that. Sometimes they taste disjointed, and the last thing you want is to taste that wine that you think, okay, I taste that Syrah, and then I taste that Grenache, right. and sometimes they can come across that way. Barrels really make them hold hands and talk a little bit more, but they really bring them together and add some softness and create different flavors and aromas on their own.
The tannin on the back end it's like a perfect funnel. Like it's in the mid palate. You have a strong tannin, and then as it finishes, it just goes like this, and just enough to land on your tongue and keep it there on the palate for such a long finish.
Right. Yeah, no, that's very important with this wine. This is actually the most difficult wine that we blend every year. It doesn't seem like it should be, but as we were saying, these components don't always play nice early. And so when we're blending them, I always have this self-doubt. We all have this, it's like, okay, what did I just try to blend here? This is working, this isn't working. It's taken experience working with these grapes to just realized I have to put them together and let them sit in barrel for a while, and then they start integrating. And when they do, they form this balanced tannin that isn't too aggressive, but really coats your mouth and just finishes very soft and delicately without being too cloying. So that's definitely one of our goals for this wine.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. And honestly, the finish is like minutes. It's just goes and goes and goes. And it's a velvety finish. It's nice and it coats the palate and whatever, so that it just stays there and you're like all happy that it's there,
Yeah. This was one of those wines that we, especially as a winemaker, you bottle it and then there's a big wave of relief because it's in bottle and now you don't have to worry about it because you've been worrying about it for 2.5 years. So, but once we open these in the tasting room, sometimes those are the first times we've tried them in a while. And with this wine, especially, we open it up and everyone just went, "Oh, okay, this is ready. This is great." So, yeah, we're very excited. And that's one of our goals is to make wines that are very approachable early. So you can open it, but they still have a ability to age for quite some time.
And that definitely
they will get better, but they're not they're not drying out your palate, or they're not falling off on the finish, even as an early wine.
So just a little geekiness. So with these big boys that are in here and doing, when you created your final. When you decided on your final blend, how long did you have them together? How previous to bottling did you actually complete that blend to let them?
Sure, that's a great question.
Play nicely in the sandbox.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my philosophy, and this is something that I picked up at Sexton, but also especially here at Jada, is we blend very early, basically as soon as we can. So not only are we co-fermenting the grapes, which I think is very helpful too. We're starting in the fermenter with, again, as Syrah, Grenache, or Syrah and Graciano, and then we end up blending right around this time, actually. So if we finished, we put stuff in barrel, let's say at the between September and mid October. We're already starting to blend.
Oh, wow.
So that way it's scary because you don't know how
handcuffed
good
yourself.
It's going to be. Some barrels are going to be better, but we find that integrating those wines and blending early ends up being, again, a greater than the sum of its parts sort of scenario. So that's definitely our philosophy here at Jada.
Awesome. Now I cannot let you go without talking about your amazing scores that you have been getting. So I kind of just did a quick little look. And we have 95, 95, 96. So your Tanat just got a 95. Sawbones, which I need to hear the story behind that one. And Passing by Cabernet got 96. This lovely baby, Hell's Kitchen, got a 94. I mean, those are incredible. So first of all, congratulations. That is absolutely incredible. And then, I mean, I know that when we get our email from Wine Enthusiast, it's like nerve-wracking. And I don't know if you're the person who's opening that email or not, but our winery is my husband and myself. So we are the ones who are literally opening the email. You're like, yay, So, I mean, it's got to feel, you've got to be patting yourself on the back. You've got, there's got to be a lot of happy, smiling faces. Those scores are incredible. So congratulations.
Yes, thank you. No, I think, no, it's funny. I'm exactly the same way when it comes to scores. I don't think that'll ever change. It starts off with, I know they're coming, or I know kind of the general, and I'm like, I don't care. We know it. We know what wines we make here and why we make them and for whom. And we're proud of what we do. And then it's like, okay, I'll take a look. So we were very excited, and, especially starting with on such a good footing in 2017, and we've been growing from there. And I think we'll keep improving our quality as we learn more, and as the vintages treat us, one way or another. Yeah, again, I can't forget to say that it's a huge team effort, and we couldn't do it without the farming, the quality of farming that we're doing in the vineyard, and everyone that helps us with the farming, and then everything that we do here, as well as the tasting room staff. I mean, they all play their part as far as bringing in the customers and creating that energy that around the brand. I think that's important too, is just to have that positive energy and somehow reflect that in the wine. And so, we were very excited. That's all.
Those are killer scores. And the thing is that it's not, well, I got a 95 and then everything else is not,
right.
Like
right.
your major lineup is all 95, 94, 96. Like that's so. No, kudos.
Thank you. I agree. I think, I personally wouldn't be happy if we got 100-point wine and the rest of our wines were, something else.
Right.
I like the idea of having consistency. I want our wine club members and anyone who comes and enjoys our wines to know that every wine they try is going to be different and also special, and then see that we put in all that and the efforts in every one of these wines. So of all of those scores, I love seeing the consistency. It just shows what we are trying to do here. I think that's the important part.
Absolutely.
And especially, I have to say too, when we have something with 95 on a Tanat, I mean, I love, things like that are just that make me so happy. So.
All right. And so for people who don't really understand that, there's a prejudice against certain wines. So it's very difficult to get that score for a Tanat. And now I'm a Tanat head. I mean, it's one of my favorite grapes. It's one of my favorite wines. But in ratings wise, like they just don't tend to rate Tanats high. It's like a dog show. They just don't like that dog, that breed or whatever. And the same thing with rosés. Like rosés, you're not seeing these high scores with rosés. You typically don't see high scores with Tanats. So that score of a Tanat is like 100 plus if it, like it's such a significant score. So it is incredible. So
yeah, that's how we feel about it for sure. Absolutely.
It really is. And when I saw that email come through that they said, about the score, I was like, oh my God, like that, like that's bow down. We're not worthy to not, we're not worthy. We're not, that really is. So I'm going to tell everybody that, who's listening, you need to get to Jada because these wines are stellar. They are absolutely incredible. And, to get these scores consistently is a unique situation. Many wineries get a high score here and, not so much, they're getting good scores, but not so much across the board. So to carry these across so many different wines is really stellar. So congratulations again. And people need to get to Jada. So if people want to get to Jada, where are you? How can they find you? I know COVID is a whole other ball game. So maybe do pre-COVID, post-COVID of how people can get in to taste these incredible wines.
Yeah. So if you Google Earth us, I wouldn't recommend it because it makes us look like we're out in the middle of nowhere. And we kind of are, but
there's a lot more out. There's a lot more out into nowhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So it looks like we're in the middle of forests and vineyards, but no, we're only about 14 miles from the 101. We're a 25-minute drive from the ocean. We're just up Vineyard Drive off of 46 West, which is kind of the main road, taking you out to the coast from Paso Robles. And we're about 5 minutes up the Vineyard Drive. So it's really not too far out here. We're open 7 days a week. I think it's 11 to 4:30 right now. And then, yeah, COVID right now, we're doing reservation only, but we actually we were lucky to be one of the wineries that have a lot of outside seating. As you notice, we have this patio area that we're very, we want to make sure everyone feels safe and comfortable. And so we usher you through one group at a time to our tasting room patio. And then we also have an outside area underneath the oak trees established as well, which we can do several groups down there also. So we can accommodate quite a few groups. And post-COVID, I think we'll probably end up sticking with the reservation only, but I don't want people to be scared to not call us. Usually it's more about just making sure everyone is getting the same experience and able to experience the wines the way that we'd like. So what we're doing, where we're laying out all the wines in front of you, and one of our staff will come out and explain at the rate that you're comfortable with. And we'll probably keep something like that. But again, it may say reservation only in the future, but we encourage people to just call and see if we have a spot, even if it says we don't on the website. So usually that's just to make sure that everyone is accommodated, with the highest, highest practices. So.
And they are dog friendly.
And dog friendly. That's all I should have said.
You got to lead with that. You've got to lead with that.
Yes, we're trying to. We're also pretty friendly too. Where there's certain areas we ask people not to venture into just for their safety, but we're right there in the middle of the vineyard, so a lot of people like to take their dogs around and go go check things out. It's a really fun place to visit for sure.
It is. And for those who are looking to go visit, it is legit right in the middle of the vineyard. Like, you go any direction and the vineyard is there, and it's a beautiful, beautiful setting. So it's a win-win situation. It's a win-win. And are you still doing the cheese pairings?
We are, yeah. We're offering the pairing. Again, it comes, pre-packaged. So you get your individual thing. So we're not handling it. It's being handled by the supplier, the cheese supplier. So we're still doing that. I think that's, I should have led with that too, because people love their cheese. So cheese and dogs, not at the same time, but
Right. Yeah, you can't lose here. You've got cheese, you got dogs, and you've got major stellar award-winning wines. So it's a trifecta right there.
Yes, absolutely.
So Joshua, if you can just tell them, Jada is on social media. What is do you know the channels?
I'm pretty terrible with that. I think you can find us on Instagram for sure. That's kind of where we're more focused. We're posting a lot of our, if we're doing any specials or, just kind of what we're doing here in the cellar and the tasting room. So you'll find us on Instagram, a little bit on Facebook, and then jadavineyard.com is how you can find us on our website. Again, you can order wine from our website, sign up for a wine club. But we're also happy to take your calls and walk everyone through any questions that they might have about our brand. So we're always ready to do that.
Okay. And one other thing, it is a veteran-owned winery, so support veterans is another reason to. If all that we've said previously isn't enough to get you to Jada, go support a veteran. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's Jack Messina as well. He was also a surgeon, so it's been his career for pretty much his entire life.
Wonderful. Well, Josh, I want to say thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to share this hour with me and to share Jada Wines. And I honestly cannot wait for my husband. I should say I can't wait for my husband to get home so that my husband is home, but it's so I can open that bottle of wine.
I'm sure you're taking pictures and saying, seriously, you need to come home because this bottle's
right. I'm doing the na. So thank you very much for joining me and for sharing the wines. I appreciate it. And I look forward to visiting one of these days soon to get back into Jada and maybe do a little walk of the vineyard with you.
That would be wonderful. I'd love to do that. I think there's you can only say so much, but it's much better to do it in person. So I'd love to do that. And thank you so much for taking the time to have me on here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.